Hi friends, my name's Trish Roberts. You're watching Faint Signals from Vega. So I wanted to quickly address something I read today about a mass death of feral, in quotes, horses, or brumbies as people like to call them, in Australia. And it's quite sad. They went down to the waterhole in the Northern Territory, where just outside of Alice Springs near St. Teresa, and there's this waterhole that usually always has water there, and they couldn't find any, and they died of heat exhaustion and dehydration. And it was about most days, for about a 10-day stretch in Alice Springs, it was 42 degrees, I think, Celsius. 45 degrees Celsius is 115 degrees Fahrenheit. And so the horses, not only do feral, in quotes, horses in Australia, not only are they dying, sort of mass deaths of feral horses from the climate crisis heat that we're having here, but even camels. There was a mass death of quote-unquote feral camels in the Northern Territory as well. Now, you know, when camels die of heat exhaustion and dehydration, that you're in dire straits. So this is what the climate crisis is bringing to Australia. Now, and by the way, anybody wringing their hands about the deaths of feral horses, feral in quotes, or feral camels, and is not vegan, needs to know that feral horses are usually anything like feral camels are usually rounded up and taken to a slaughterhouse, and there's actually a camel meat industry in Australia, and there's also a horse meat industry in Australia. So that's the sort of, I guess you could call it, the irony of it, when people get all upset and post about how sad it is that feral in quotes horses die of dehydration and heat stroke, because we, in Australia, including the racing industry, we kill lots and lots of horses, and they end up on the plates of people in Europe. Like there's 25,000 plus ex-racing horses are slaughtered in slaughterhouses in Australia. Their flesh is transported to Europe. So, we have this moral compartmentalization about horses and other animals, because on one hand we're saying how sad it is and how wonderful wild horses are, and then on the other hand we're rounding them up and killing them and sending them off to be sending their flesh off to be used on plates in Europe. And the same in the horse racing industry, the Melbourne Cup. For every one horse that goes through to the Melbourne Cup, and that's like the Kentucky Derby, there's probably hundreds that end up on people's plates in Europe. So, this is the sort of the weird thing when I see these posts about feral horses dying, and it is awful. Yes, it's awful. It's awful to read that, and it's only going to get worse and worse and worse. But the moral compartmentalization that happens because we're not vegan, and because we see animals as resources and for entertainment, like racing horses are for entertainment, so are greyhounds in the racing industry and so forth. And for every one of those greyhounds, there's hundreds that either just end up euthanized or shot in the head, or there's actually now a sort of a push to rehome them. But I think that we need to all go vegan so that there aren't all these poor greyhounds that are being abused and full of drugs and then killed because they're not fast enough or whatever. So that's why we need to have a vegan society. So anyway, we stop seeing sentient animals as resources, and they stop suffering and being killed because of our speciesism. So the other thing I wanted to mention, because this very, very tragic death of those horses, which is only going to get worse and worse and worse until there are no horses and there are no camels and so forth in Australia. Just recently we had 3 or 4 days of very, very heavy smoke in Tasmania. There was at one point 45 fires, and 3/4 of those fires were uncontrolled. And we basically had to stay indoors for the last 3 days because the smoke was so heavy in the air that I couldn't stay outside for more than 10 minutes without feeling my throat, feeling very irritated. You could literally see the blue in the air. You couldn't see the river, which we can normally see from here every day. So the Huon Valley was full of smoke. And that's climate change, because that's only going to get worse in summer in Tasmania. And Tasmania is probably that's the coolest state in Australia. Most of our temperatures, we only get, say, about 6 really hot days in summer, which are over 30. And then the rest of the time it's very doable. It's like 26 in summer, 25, even 20 and 18 degrees Celsius. So summer is, it's not really a hard, it's not really, really hot all the time. It's not. But if as climate crisis progresses, that might be the case, and that means there'll probably be more fires, which means that that's going to be really dire, because a lot of people, have forests nearby. And that's a wonderful thing. I love Tasmania because it does have so many forests. It's hard to find a place in Tasmania where it isn't beautiful. So this is climate crisis, and it's not going to get any better. And other animals who haven't, they are on this planet. 99.99% of the planet's population are non-human, and we're destroying their home for them. And they're suffering, like the brumbies that died, the feral in quotes horses, and the camels, the mass camel death, and all that kind of thing. The writing's on the wall. This is the 6th mass extinction happening as we speak, and we're in the front lines. If we think that we're exempt, we're just animals like all these other animals, and it's coming for us. And it is happening to us anyway. Right now, there are lots of people dying from climate crisis. So we need to wake up, and the first thing we need to do is go vegan. Because I'll show you a couple of memes why that is. The largest research to date, 119 countries with 40,000 farms from farm to fork, 90% of what we eat. And it discovered the conclusion, and these weren't from vegans, this is scientists, and it was published in the journal Science, that we need to adopt a plant-based diet, not only for the climate crisis, but for land degradation like eutrophication and acidification of the oceans and so forth. And animal agriculture is the greatest driver of the 6th mass extinction. So this is why we need to go vegan. We don't have to wait for governments to give us permission. We don't have to wait for corporations to give us permission. We don't have to wait for our parents to give us permission. We don't have to wait till capitalism ends. We can go vegan right now. There's no excuses. There's no excuse that I couldn't debunk. And, there's no excuse that is good enough for why we don't go vegan and reject using animals as resources for food, clothing, entertainment, and other reasons. It's time for us to evolve. It's time for us to evolve and move on from that very, very violent practice we're doing every day, 3 times a day when we sit down to eat. And this climate crisis is directly a result of our animal use, our animal product consumption. So when we're not vegan and we're wringing our hands about the climate crisis, we're in some ways being either ignorant or super hypocritical, because this is directly what's happening right now. The 6th mass extinction and the climate crisis is a direct result from one of the major drivers of the climate crisis, animal agriculture. So all the animal products we're consuming, dairy, eggs, fish, etc., flesh, all of it, it's all contributing greatly to the destruction of the environment, the destruction of the rainforest, the destruction of the oceans, the destruction of people's lands are going underwater. All these animals are suffering greatly, and their only crime, in quotes, is that they are another species. So let's go vegan and stop this insanity. It is an insanity. And, it wasn't fun here the last few days with all the smoke, and I was really worried that these fires were going to maybe make their way up this way. And summer hasn't finished yet. On Friday we have 35 degrees Celsius and with winds, which means that any fires that are still going are going to be exacerbated by that. So this is something that I'm not looking forward to every summer. And we live in a cool state here in Tasmania, and all over the world this is what people are facing. In California, the wildfires are crazy and lots of people die in these wildfires. Lots of animals die that you never hear about. Lots of habitat is destroyed and so forth. So I implore you, please go vegan, because sentient animals, just like the dogs and cats whom we live with, love life just like we do and do not want to die. And we are destroying the planet with this insane consumption of products that we don't need to live. We don't need them to survive. We don't need them for nutrition. In fact, you get way, way more, and it's not destroying your body in the process eating animal products. So please check out my How to Go Vegan resource. It's a comprehensive vegan resource in podcast form. I think you'll find it really beneficial. And if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments section. Please subscribe if you like my channel, if you like this content. Please click the like button, leave comments if you wish. I always like to see comments because then I sort of feel like people are engaging with the content. Please keep it civil. And please click the notification bell to receive updates, otherwise you won't receive them. So anyway, thank you very much for watching. I'm so glad that finally today I don't have this heavy smoke in the air and I can actually sit outside and talk to you because it's been impossible to do so in the last 3 days. So anyway, thanks so much for watching. My name's Trish Roberts. You're watching Faint Signals from Vega. Please go vegan. Bye for now.